students. Today we discuss another type of conic, that is when you slice a cone you get another section what we call as the ellipse. Consider this right circular cone. This is a right circular cone. I am slicing this cone slightly slanting to the axis. So after slicing you can see that I get a section what is called as the ellipse. The outer rim is called as the ellipse. Here also this is elliptical in shape. This is called as the ellipse. So when you slice a cone in different forms, the first one what we have studied is when you slice a cone parallel to the base you get what is called as a circle. When you slice a cone parallel to the generator axis we get what is called as a parabola. When you slice a cone slanting to the parallel generator axis we get what is called as an ellipse. Now let us come to the definition of the ellipse. What are the properties of the ellipse and all such things we have to discuss about. I have already written the definition on the board so you can easily read and write along with me. What is the standard form of the ellipse? What is an ellipse? An ellipse is a set of all points in the plane. It is a set of all points in the plane. The sum of whose distances from two fixed points in the plane is a constant. The sum of whose distance from two fixed points in the planes, that is the two fixed points are F1 and F2. The distance from F1 and F2 are always a constant. Distance from two fixed point is always a constant. That is called as an ellipse. The two fixed points are called as the foci of the ellipse. The two fixed points F1 and F2 are called as the foci of the ellipse. So for a parabola there is only one focus, but for an ellipse there are two foci, plural word, foci. Midpoint of the line segment joining the foci. Midpoint of the line segment joining the foci, it is called as the center of the ellipse. Center of the ellipse is denoted by O. And the distance between the foci, is equal to 2c. Line segment through the foci of the ellipse. It is called as the major axis, and here the major axis is equal to AB. And the endpoints of the major axis, that is, this is A and B. The endpoints of the major axis, they are called as the vertex. So it has got two vertices, but for a parabola there is only one vertex. Line segment through the foci of the ellipse is the major axis, and the line segment through the center and perpendicular to the major axis. The line segment through the center and perpendicular to the major axis is called as the minor axis PQ, and the length of the minor axis is equal. Endpoints of the major axis, the vertices A and B. Length of the major axis is equal to 2A. Length of the minor axis is equal to 2B. And there is a relationship between A, B and C. What is the relationship between C? You have seen. What is the relationship between A, B and C? The relationship between A, B and C is A squared minus B squared is always equal to C squared. And when A is equal to B, the particular case you get what is called as a circle. When A is equal to B, you get what is called as a circle. In this case, ellipse A squared minus B squared is equal to C squared. And you have another term, what is called as a eccentricity. eccentricity of the ellipse. E is equal to C by A. And for an ellipse, eccentricity is always less than 1. You can verify after getting C and A, you can verify it whether it is less than 1. If it is less than 1, the conic section is an ellipse. So once again we will read the definitions. An ellipse is a set of all points in the plane, the sum of whose distance from two fixed points in the plane is a constant. An ellipse is a set of all points in the plane, the sum of whose distance from two fixed points. These two are the two fixed points is always a constant. The two fixed points F1 and F2, they are called as the foci of the ellipse. There are two foci. Circle has only one focus, and that is the center of the ellipse. Midpoint of the line segment joining the focus, foci, is the center of the ellipse O. Midpoint of the line segment joining the foci is the center of the ellipse O, and the distance between the foci is equal to 2c. F1 and F2 is equal to 2c. Line segment through the foci is the foci of the ellipse. Line segment through the foci of the ellipse is the major axis AB, and the line segment through the center and perpendicular to the major axis. Line segment through the center and perpendicular to the major axis is called as the minor axis PQ. Endpoints of the major axis, that is here the endpoints of the major axis are A and B. They are called as the vertices. A is a vertex, B is a vertex. And length of the major axis has got a particular length, and the length of the major axis is equal to 2A. Length of the minor axis PQ, the length of the minor axis is equal to 2B. And there is a relationship between A, B and C, that is A squared minus B squared is equal to C squared, and eccentricity of an ellipse is equal to E is equal to C by A, and for an ellipse eccentricity is always less than 1. Now, when we considered about a parabola, we have considered 4 standard types of parabola: opening to the left, opening to the right, opening up, opening down. In the same way, we have to consider 2 types of ellipse, that is the major axis along the x-axis and the major axis along the y-axis. So, next we have considering about the standard form of the ellipse. There are 2 forms of ellipses: the major axis along the x-axis and the major axis along the y-axis. The standard form of the ellipse is x squared by a squared plus y squared by b squared is equal to 1. That is, let us consider an example: x squared by 5 squared plus y squared by 3 squared is equal to 1. This is an ellipse, standard form of an ellipse. If the denominator of x squared is greater than denominator of y squared, the major axis is along x-axis. If the denominator of x squared is greater than denominator of y-axis, denominator of y squared, the major axis is along the x-axis. That means we can consider the case as this. foci foci. So major axis is along the x-axis because denominator of x squared is greater than denominator of y squared. The major axis is along the x-axis. Now, here this is a vertex minus a comma 0. This is a comma 0. So foci f1 comma f2, vertices a comma 0 minus a comma 0. Length of major axis 2a, length of minor axis is equal to 2b, and foci f1 comma f2 minus c comma 0 and c comma 0, minus c comma 0 and c comma 0, and the relationship between a, b and c is a squared minus b squared is equal to c squared. Now let us see. A squared, a is equal to 5, b is equal to 3. 25 minus 9 is equal to c squared, which means c squared is equal to 16, c is equal to plus or minus 4. So foci is equal to minus 4 comma 0 and 4 comma 0. Vertices a comma 0, that is minus 5 comma 0 and 5 comma 0. Length of major axis 2a, that is 2 into 5, which is equal to 10. Length of minor axis 2 into 3 is equal to 6. Length of lactus rectum 2b squared by a, that is 2 into 3 squared by a, 18 by 5. Eccentricity E is equal to c by a. And what is c is equal to? That's 4 by 5. 4 by 5, which is less than 1. Eccentricity E is equal to c by a, which is less than 1. So it is an ellipse. So this is how you identify where is the major axis and where is the minor axis. If the denominator of x squared is greater than the denominator of y square, the major axis is along the x-axis. Foci, there are two foci, f1 and f2, that is minus 4 comma 0 and 4 comma 0. How did you get c, the foci? There is a relationship between a squared, a, b and c. That is a squared minus b squared is equal to c squared. So you get c. The foci, the vertices, endpoints of the major axis is called as the vertices. That is a comma 0 minus a comma 0. That is minus 5 comma 0, 5 comma 0. Length of the major axis is equal to 2a. Length of the minor axis is equal to 2b. Length of lactus rectum is equal to 2b squared by a. Eccentricity E is equal to c by a. Hope it is clear to you. Have you copied down the notes? Yes. Okay. Major axis along y-axis. Standard form is x squared by b squared plus y squared by a squared is equal to 1. X-axis, y-axis, foci F1, F2. Foci F1 comma F2. That is, here it is 0 comma C and 0 comma minus C. 0 comma C, 0 comma minus C. Denominator of x squared less than denominator of y squared. Major axis along y-axis. Major axis is along y-axis. Length of lactus rectum 2b squared by a. Eccentricity E is equal to C by A less than 1. Relation between A, B and C. A squared minus B squared is equal to C squared. Length of major axis. Major axis 2A. Length of minor axis equal to 2B. Distance between the foci. Distance between foci 2C. So, major axis along the y-axis, x squared by b squared plus y squared by a squared is equal to 1. And the denominator of x squared is less than denominator of y squared. Major axis is along the y-axis and lactus rectum 2b squared by a, like the previous one. Eccentricity E is equal to C by a, that is also less than 1. A squared minus b squared is equal to C squared. That's a relationship between A, B and C. Major axis is equal to 2a. Length of the minor axis is equal to 2b. Distance between the foci is equal to 2c. Now, this is about ellipse. So, there are two types of ellipse and you can find out which type of ellipse by looking at the denominator of x squared. If the denominator of x squared is greater than denominator of y squared, major axis will be along the x-axis. If the denominator of x squared is less than that of the denominator of y squared, major axis is along the y-axis. That is, there are two types, x squared by a squared plus y squared by b squared is equal to 1. and x squared by b squared plus y squared by a squared is also equal to 1. There are two foci for an ellipse, two foci. Length of the major axis is 2a, length of minor axis is 2b, length of lactus rectum is equal to 2b squared by a, but for a parabola, length of lactus rectum is equal to 4a, eccentricity E is equal to c by a, and the relationship between a, b and c is a squared minus b squared is equal to c squared. If a squared is equal to b squared, the ellipse becomes a circle. Now let us consider some examples based on this one. Find foci, vertices, length of major and minor axis, eccentricity, length of lactus rectum, of x squared by 36 plus y squared by 16 is equal to 1. Question number 1. Now we have to make it in the standard form. That is x squared by 6 squared plus y squared by 4 squared is equal to 1. Denominator of x squared is greater than denominator of y squared. So we can say that major axis along x-axis. Major axis along x-axis, and you draw the figure. There are two foci, F1 and F2. That is of the form x squared by a squared plus y squared by b squared is equal to 1. A is equal to 6, b is equal to 4. Now, a squared minus b squared is equal to c squared. 36 minus 16 is equal to c squared, or 20 is equal to c squared. C is equal to 20 plus or minus 20. So what is a foci? Foci is equal to, foci lies on the x-axis, x-axis, y-axis. Foci lies on the, that is plus or minus root of 20 comma 0, because it lies on the x-axis. Foci. Vertices plus or minus a comma 0, that is plus or minus a. What is a? 6 comma 0. Major axis. Length of major axis 2a. 2 into 6 is equal to 12. Length of minor axis 2b. 2 into 4 is equal to 8. Eccentricity E is equal to c by a. Root of 20 divided by a. A is equal to 6. Root of 20, 4 4s are 16, approximately 4.2 divided by 6 is less than 1. So it's correct. Length of lactus rectum 2b squared by a. 2 into b squared by a, 6. That is equal to 2 3 times 16 divided by 3. So once you draw the figure, all the things becomes easy. Eccentricity E is equal to c by a, lactus rectum. So clear? Draw the figure. That's the only way you can make the problem easy. Draw the corresponding conic section, and so that all the calculations becomes easier for you. Now next question. Find the foci, vertices, length of major and minor axis, eccentricity, lactus rectum of x squared by 4 plus y squared by 25 is equal to 1. So this is of the form x squared by 2 squared plus y squared by 5 squared is equal to 1. Or you can say this denominator of x squared is less than denominator of y squared. That means major axis on y axis. In that case, the form will be x squared by b squared plus y squared by a squared is equal to 1. B is equal to 2. A is equal to 5. Foci F1 and F2, vertices, etc. A squared minus b squared is equal to c squared. 25 minus 4 is equal to c squared. 21 is equal to c squared. C is equal to plus or minus root of 21. But what about the foci? Foci lies on the y-axis. So it will be 0 plus or minus root of 21. Vertices 0 plus or minus a. 0 plus or minus 5. Length of major axis 2a. 2 into 5, 10. Length of minor axis 2b. 2 into 2, 4. Lactus rectum 2b squared by a. 2 into, what is b squared? 2 squared by a. 8 by 5. Eccentricity C by A. root of 21 by 5. So first write down the formula, check out to which category of ellipse it belongs to, whether it is in the denominator of x squared is greater than denominator of y squared, or denominator of x squared is less than that of the denominator of y squared. So if the denominator of x squared is greater than denominator of y squared, that means major axis lies along the x-axis. So it is of the form x squared by a squared plus y squared by b squared is equal to 1. If the denominator of x squared is less than denominator of y squared, major axis is on the y axis. And one more thing you have to notice that it is symmetric with respect to the x axis and y axis. Ellipse is symmetric with respect to x axis as well as y axis. Now next question. Find the coordinates of the foci the vertices length of major and minor axis major and minor axis eccentricity lactus rectum of the ellipse 9x squared plus 4y squared is equal to 36. Now standard form of the ellipse will be either x squared by a squared plus y squared by b squared is equal to 1, or x squared by b squared plus y squared by a squared is equal to 1. That is, when you examine, you can see that coefficient of x squared and y squared is equal to 1, and in between the sign is positive. Now in the given example, the coefficient of x squared and y squared is not equal to 1, and the right side is also not equal to 1. So what can you do is divide both sides by 36. So that gives you 9x squared plus 4y squared by 36 is equal to 36 by 36, or 9x squared by 36 plus 4y squared by 36 is equal to 1, or x squared by 4 plus y squared by 9 is equal to 1, which means x squared by 2 squared plus y squared by 3 squared is equal to 1. Denominator of x squared less than denominator of y squared. That means major axis on y axis. Draw the corresponding figure. f1 foci, f2 foci. Major axis on the y-axis. So this is of the form x squared by b squared plus y squared by a squared is equal to 1, where b is equal to 2, a is equal to 3. So what is the relationship between a, b and c? A squared minus b squared is equal to c squared. That is 3 squared minus 2 squared is equal to c squared, or c squared is equal to 9 minus 4 is equal to 5. C is equal to plus or minus root of 5. Now you get all the things. Foci. Because it is on the y-axis, it is 0 plus or minus root 5. Vertices 0 plus or minus a. It is 0 plus or minus 3. Length of major axis 2a. 2 into 3, 6. Major axis, minor axis 2b. 2 into 2, 4. Lactus rectum 2b squared by a. Eccentricity c by a. So you get all the terms. So an additional thing you have to remember is, when you consider the standard form of the ellipse, coefficient of x squared and y squared should be equal to positive 1. The connection sign in between should be positive, and on the right hand side it should be equal to 1. If not, make them into the standard form, and then you decide whether the major axis is on the x-axis or on the y-axis, and then do the problem. Find the equation of the ellipse vertices plus or minus 13, 0, foci plus or minus 5, 0. So from this you can understand the vertices is on the x-axis and the foci also on the x-axis. So major axis is on the x-axis. X-axis, y-axis. Vertices minus 13, 0, 13, 0, foci minus 5, 0, 5, 0. Vertices A is equal to 13. Vertices plus or minus A, 0. Foci plus or minus C, 0. And you know that A squared minus B squared is equal to C squared. And you are asked to find out the equation to the ellipse. In this case, the equation to the ellipse will be x squared by A squared plus y squared by B squared is equal to 1. Now, here you have A and C. You have to get B. A squared is equal to 13 squared minus B squared is equal to 5 squared, or 13 squared minus 5 squared is equal to b squared. 169 minus 25 is equal to b squared, which means b squared is equal to 144, b is equal to 12. So what is the equation? Equation is x squared by a squared 13 squared plus y squared by 12 squared is equal to 1. This is the equation to the ellipse. One more question. One more. I'll give this question as an assignment. Try to do this question as an assignment, and also the questions from your textbook. Major axis is equal to 20. Length of major axis is equal to 20. Foci 0 plus or minus 5. I'm giving you an hint. Foci means C is equal to plus or minus 5. Major axis, length of major axis 2A is equal to 20, A is equal to 10. So you can find out b squared using the formula a squared minus b squared is equal to c squared. You get what is b. Okay. And foci is equal to 0 plus or minus 5. So foci is on the y-axis. On y-axis, the form is x squared by b squared plus y squared by a squared is equal to 1. And the answer you get is x squared by 75 plus y squared by 100 is equal to 1. Try to do this question as an assignment question. I hope everything is clear to you. Now we have one more section in that conic section, and we have completed 3 sections: circle, parabola and ellipse. Thank you.